The email arrives on a Thursday afternoon while you are eating a sandwich at your desk. Subject line: official, signing announcement, confidential. You read it 4 times. Then you open the calculator on your phone because you don't trust yourself to do this in your head, and you type in the numbers, and the screen says $1,281,000 before tax. Call it just over $1 million after. You are 42 years old. You make $68,000 a year doing scheduling for a logistics company. You rent. Your mother cleaned offices for 26 years. Nobody with your last name has ever had $100,000 in their life. And here's the part that matters. Nobody in your family knows this is coming. Not your mother, not your sister, not one person at any Christmas for the last 16 years. Because 16 years ago you took $8,000, every dollar you had, and you gave it to a friend to help him start a company, and you never told a living soul. In about 4 days, they're going to find out, and their reaction is not going to be the one you've been imagining. The 8,000. Let's go back. You're 26. You work nights loading trucks with a guy called Dev Mehra. He's 30, he has a chemistry degree he isn't using, and he spends every break sketching screens on the back of dispatch sheets. His idea is boring. That's important. It is genuinely, deeply boring. Independent pharmacies, the small ones, run their stock on paper and on a spreadsheet a nephew made. They overorder, they run out, they lose money in both directions. Dev wants to build software that tells a pharmacist what to reorder before they know they need it. He wants to call it Shelfline. In March 2010, he sits you down in the car park and tells you he's leaving to build it, and that he's raising $40,000 from people who know him. You don't follow the numbers at first, so he draws it on the back of a dispatch sheet. The $40,000 doesn't buy the company, it buys 5% of it, shared out between everyone who puts money in. Which means Dev is valuing the whole thing, the idea, the sketches, himself, at $800,000. 5% of $800,000 is $40,000. So 1% costs $8,000. And that 1% is a slice of the entire company. $8,000 is everything in your account. It took you 3.5 years to get there. $200 a week, sometimes less, into a savings account with an $11 a month fee you kept meaning to switch away from. You say you'll think about it. You think about it for 9 days. You are not doing analysis. You have no idea how to value a company. You don't know what a cap table is. What you actually do, over those 9 days, is decide whether you trust Dev Mehra, a man you have watched restack a broken pallet properly at 4 a.m. when nobody was looking. You wire the money on a Tuesday from a branch in a strip mall. The teller asks if you're sure. You say yes in a voice you don't recognize. 4 weeks later, a PDF turns up in your email with your name on it and the words 1.00% common stock. You print it. You put it in a drawer under your passport. You look at it maybe twice a year for the next 16 years. You weren't investing. You were betting on a person you liked with money you could not afford to lose. Why you tell no one? Here's the question everyone will ask you later. You don't tell your mother because your mother has never had $8,000 at one time in her life. And if you tell her you handed it to a man from the warehouse, she will not sleep. You don't tell your Uncle Ray because Ray has an opinion about everything, and Ray would have talked you out of it in under 4 minutes, in the kitchen, in front of people, and you would have let him because you were 26 and he was certain. You don't tell your sister Nicole because Nicole tells your mother. You don't tell anybody because you are almost certain this is going to fail, and if it fails, you will have to be the man who threw away $8,000 on a friend's idea at every dinner for the rest of your life. Your family doesn't forget things like that. They don't do it cruelly, they just do it forever. So you keep it small, you keep it in a drawer, and a thing you don't say for a year becomes a thing you can't say in 5, because by then there's a second question attached to it. Why didn't you mention this before? You didn't keep it a secret because it was big. You kept it a secret because it was small enough to be laughed at. 16 years of nothing. Now here's the part nobody tells you about owning a piece of a company. For most of the time, it is exactly the same as having no money at all. Year 2, Dev raises a proper seed round. You get an email with a spreadsheet attached that you do not understand, and a line saying your 1% is now 0.62%. You have just been diluted by nearly 40%, and you find this out from a footnote. Year 4, Series A, 0.41%. On paper, using the price the investors paid, your stake is worth about $90,000. You cannot sell it. There is no button. Nobody will buy shares in a private company from a scheduling coordinator, and even if they would, you'd need the company's permission. It is a number on a screen, and it buys you nothing. Year 7, you're 33, and it nearly dies. A bigger competitor undercuts them. 2 of Shelfline's 4 biggest customers leave in the same quarter, and they raise a down round at half the previous price to keep the lights on. Dev sends you a personal email, not a template, apologizing. Your stake drops to 0.24%, and its paper value drops from $90,000 to about $26,000. That's the night you write it off. Properly, in your own head. You sit on the end of your bed and you decide the $8,000 is gone, and you feel something close to relief, because at least now the story is over. You are 33, you have $4,000 in savings, you rent a 1-bedroom, and you carry on. Year 10, it starts working. 400 pharmacies, then 1,100. Dev's emails get shorter and better. Year 12, there's a Series B, and you stop reading the attachments, because the number on the page has stopped meaning anything to you. It's monopoly money, attached to a life where you check your account before you buy tires. And the whole time, your actual life is unremarkable in a way that is difficult to overstate. You move flat once, for $80 less a month. You have a car with a slow puncture you top up at a garage every Sunday for most of a year. At 37, your card is declined in a supermarket in front of 4 people because a direct debit came out early, and you stand there apologizing to a cashier while owning a piece of a company worth tens of millions of dollars. Those 2 facts live in the same man at the same time, and neither one helps the other. 16 Christmases. 16 times someone asks how work's going and you say, same. 16 times you are the person in the room with the least going on. The hardest part of owning something for 16 years is that for 15 of them, it is completely indistinguishable from having thrown the money away. The exit. The acquisition happens in 9 weeks, which after 16 years feels obscene. A healthcare logistics group buys Shelfline for $610 million. Cash, no earnout for common holders. You own 0.21% after the last round, $1,281,000. There's a lawyer's letter you pay $400 to have explained to you. There's an escrow holdback. 10% of your money sits in an account for 18 months in case something goes wrong with the deal. There's long-term capital gains tax at 20%, plus another 3.8% for the net investment income tax, and that takes roughly $260,000 off the top before you touch a cent. What lands, eventually, is a little over $1 million. You don't cry. You don't call anyone. You go back to work on the Monday and update a delivery schedule for a client in Ohio because you have not told your employer either, and it turns out a wire transfer does not change what's in your inbox. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like being caught. Your family find out. You tell your mother first, at her kitchen table, badly. You've rehearsed it in the car and none of it survives contact. What comes out is roughly, "You know Dev from the warehouse? I put some money into his company years ago. It sold." Denise says, "That's nice, love. How much?" And you tell her. And she puts one hand flat on the counter and says nothing for a long time. Then she says, 16 years? Not congratulations. Not how much again. 16 years. That's the number that hurts her, and she's right that it should, because what she's just understood is that every time she asked how you were doing and you said, getting by, you were managing her. She sat across from you at 100 dinners while you had a locked drawer. It moves through the family in about 4 days. Ray gets there fast. Ray's version arrives fully formed, and it never changes. You got lucky. That's gambling, that is.
You could have lost the lot. He is not entirely wrong, which is why it lands. But watch what the word lucky does. It takes 16 years of not selling, not panicking, not mentioning it, and turns them into a coin toss. It lets him admire nothing. He tells the story at a barbecue as a funny thing that happened to you. Nicole is the one that actually cuts. She does the maths. She's the only one who does. She works out that in 2013, 3 years after you wired the money, she asked you for $600 for a car repair, and you said you didn't have it. And you didn't have it, that was true. You had $4,000 in savings and a rent payment and a stake in a private company you could not sell to save your life. But try explaining that sentence to your sister. What she hears is, he had it, and he picked the software instead of me. She says one thing about it once in a car park after your mother's birthday. You always had a plan you didn't tell us about. And then she is completely, exhaustingly normal with you forever after, and that's worse. And then it just keeps arriving. A cousin who hasn't messaged you in 9 years sends 3 paragraphs about a business idea. Someone at the barbecue calls you our millionaire twice, and both times the table laughs a half-second too late. Your mother starts saying he's done very well for himself to people at church, proud and slightly formal, like she's describing someone she used to know. Then the small mechanical changes start, and those are the ones that actually wear you down. The bill arrives at a restaurant in April, and nobody reaches for it. Not rudely, there's just a 2-second pause that never used to be there, and you pick it up. And now that is what happens at restaurants. You try to give your mother money, and she will not take it. 26 years of cleaning offices made her the person who copes, and she does not want to stop being her. You get around it in the end by paying a roofer directly and telling her afterwards, and she says thank you in a voice that is doing something complicated. Ray asks you to look at a business plan for a second van. Not for money. He's very clear it's not for money. And then it is very clearly for money. You say yes. Of course you say yes. He calls it a loan, and you both know it isn't, and that unsaid thing sits between you at every birthday from then on. And somebody, at some point, says the sentence, "You've changed. You have done nothing. You drive the same car. You go to the same job, you wear the same coat. What's changed is what they're looking at when they look at you. You get judged twice from opposite directions, often by the same person in the same conversation. First for having it. Must be nice, all right for some of us have to work. Then for having hidden it. You didn't trust us, we're your family, 16 years. They aren't really angry about the $1 million. They're angry about the 8,000.
What they're right about. Here's the thing you have to sit with, and it takes months. They're not wrong. You didn't only keep quiet to protect your mother's sleep. You kept quiet because you didn't want to be argued with, and somewhere in year 6 or 7, not being argued with started to feel like being right. You had a drawer nobody could open. You sat at those dinners knowing something they didn't, and if you're honest, properly honest, at 11 at night, that felt good. That's the part you don't say out loud. 16 years of that does something. It makes you a slightly separate person in your own family, not above them, beside them, with a pane of glass in the way that you installed yourself, one Christmas at a time. And the $600 is real. You can dress it up in illiquidity all you want. Your sister needed $600 for a clutch, and you said no. And there is no version of the accounting where that stops being true. You spent 16 years making sure nobody could talk you out of it. You also spent 16 years making sure nobody could know you. So what did $8,000 actually buy? It bought security. Your mother's roof is fixed. You will not be poor at 70. If your job goes tomorrow, it is a problem and not a catastrophe. That's not nothing. That's the thing your father worked Sundays for and never got. But it did not buy the moment you imagined at 26. There was no room full of people being pleased for you. What actually happened is that you handed your family a fact they had no idea what to do with, and they did the only thing anyone does with a fact like that. They used it to reread the past. At Christmas, Marcus, your nephew, who is 14, finds you by the back door. He's heard the barbecue version, the lucky one. He wants to know if it's true you gave a man from work $8,000. And you tell him. Not the funny version, the real one. The 9 days, the strip mall, the drawer, the down round, the night you decided it was gone. You tell him a piece of paper in a drawer is worth nothing for a very long time, and that the hard part is not the money, it's the 15 years. Then you tell him the part you actually learned, which has nothing to do with pharmacies. Tell someone. Pick one person and tell them. Not so they can approve it, so that whatever it turns into, you didn't spend the whole of it alone. The 8,000 made you a millionaire. The 600 is what you still owe.